Hi guys, I'm Emily, and I'm going to tell you about the shocking secret that my family hid from me for years. You won't ever guess what it was. Let me take you back to 5 years ago. I'm an only child, and I live with my mom and dad. Dad is a manager for a chain of home improvement stores, and he is always changing what store he manages, so we move around the country a lot. It's kind of difficult to make and keep friends when you are only in one town for a year, or sometimes less. It's getting even more difficult now that I'm 15. I never complained when we moved when I was younger. It always seemed like a big adventure. That was until I met Brad. I met him on my first day at the school I'm in at the moment, and I was obsessed with him straight away. He is so gorgeous and popular. I never thought that he would be interested in me, but he was. We started going out and he even bought me a ring as a present. He is so romantic. But then it all went wrong. That night over dinner was when Dad told me that we were going to be moving again. We would only be in this town for 1 more week before we would have to move over 100 miles away. It was so far away I wouldn't be able to see Brad anymore. I couldn't take it. It was heartbreaking. I had finally found somewhere where I really liked to live. And I was going to have to move? Nope. I was dead set against it. I told Dad and Mom that I was staying and that they were going to have to move without me. I wasn't expecting Dad to react the way he did. He didn't get angry. He just told me that I had no choice and I had to do what he said. It was so mean. But I had had enough. I picked up my plate and threw it at him. I'm usually calm, but I was just so angry I couldn't help it. I had been holding on to my anger for so long, not just because of the constant moving, but because of a lot of things. My family just never make an effort to understand and listen to me. Dad ducked and it missed him, but it hit the wall of our apartment with such force that it smashed. Then I picked up other plates and threw them too. I just couldn't stop. I was screaming at him too. Mom started crying and told me that I had to calm down as I would scare the neighbors. Well, I was too angry to listen. She got a brush and dustpan and started to clear up the glass. But she was in such a state that she cut her hand on a piece of broken glass. There was blood everywhere. I was so upset. I never meant for my mom to hurt herself. Then I saw something outside, flashing blue lights. It was the police. I couldn't believe that someone had called them. I was so scared. Dad answered the door to them and let 2 policemen in. Then I got really upset. Even though my parents feel like strangers to me, I would never want to hurt them. I talked to the police and apologized and told them that it was all my fault and I was so sorry and I would never act like that again. The police accepted my reasoning and decided to leave us. But on the way out, he paused and said he just needed to fill in some paperwork before he went. My dad said it was completely understandable. All he wanted to know was our names. Then what happened next really shocked me. My dad told the police some fake names, and not just for him, but for my mom and me too. I was so shocked I didn't say anything back. When the police were gone, I stood there in a shocked silence. There was food all over the walls from where I had thrown things around, and Mom was quietly crying. I expected my dad to turn around and shout at me and to tell me why he had lied to the police, but he didn't. He just turned around calmly and told me to go and pack my bags. We were moving that night. I opened my mouth to ask him what was happening, but he raised his hand up to his mouth and shushed me. I had no choice. I ran up to my room in tears. What was going on? I Skyped Brad and was crying so much that I don't think he really understood what was happening, even when I tried to explain it to him. Then Dad came in and took my phone off of me and told me to hurry up. I couldn't believe how unreasonable he was being. 2 hours later, we were driving in the dark to the new town where Dad was going to be working. We sat in silence for the journey. I couldn't believe what was happening. Why had Dad given fake names to the police? And why were we having to move in such a rush? When we got to the town, I found out we were staying in a really run-down motel, as our new apartment wasn't ready yet. When we got there, I stormed off and told my parents I was going for a walk. I didn't want to talk to them. I wandered aimlessly around the streets. I called Brad up and calmly told him what had happened. He listened and believed my crazy story. He kept trying to guess why my parents had lied about who they were. He thought that they were criminals, and that is why they lied. It did seem likely. All of this moving around the country and lying to the police. I wanted to run away and go and be with Brad, but I had no money. Then he had an idea. He suggested I speak to the police myself. I didn't want to do it over the phone, so I went to a police station. I was really nervous. The man at the desk thought I was lying at first. I could tell he didn't believe what I was saying. He still wrote it all down, but was reluctant to do so. I just begged him to believe me and to pass it on to the police officers who had been to my old apartment earlier that night. When I left, I still wasn't sure if he believed me or not. When I got back to the motel, Dad was sitting outside and he was livid. He was so angry that I was out by myself at night. He sent me to my room and I didn't even argue. Then I realized I had a text from Brad. I opened it. It was a photo from a news article from 5 years ago. It showed a grainy CCTV photo of a man robbing a grocery store. He looked kind of like my dad. Maybe my dad was a thief on the run. That would explain so much. The next week was really weird. We moved into our new apartment and Mom and Dad made a massive effort to get me to like it. They let me paint my room and buy new furniture. Mom even gave me money to go clothes shopping. I really missed Brad though, and had decided that as soon as I was 18, I was going to move and be with him. My new school was okay. I was so used to starting at a new school that it didn't really matter to me anymore. Then a couple of weeks later, something really strange happened. I was called into the principal's office. Now I keep my head down at school. I have enough going on in my life. Getting into trouble at school is the last thing I need. So I was worried. Was there something wrong with Mom or Dad? But when I got there, it was not what I was expecting. Inside were the 2 police officers who had been to our old apartment the previous week. It must be something pretty serious for them to have traveled this far. They sat me down and told me that they had got the message from me that my dad had given them false names. They had proceeded to investigate what had happened and needed to talk to me about it. They asked me what my parents' names were, and I told them their real ones. Then they showed me a black and white photograph of my parents that was years old, probably around the time I was a baby. He asked me if the people in the picture were my parents, and I said yes. Then they told me that they had some news. My parents had given false names, as they were wanted by the police. I told them that I already knew and explained how Brad had found the picture of my dad robbing a grocery store. The policeman frowned. He said that wasn't why he was here, and that case had already been solved, and that my dad was wanted for something far more serious: kidnapping. He told me that almost 16 years ago, 2 girls were born at the same hospital on the same day and had the same surname. Somehow the hospital had managed to get the babies confused, and the parents ended up taking the wrong babies home. Neither family knew anything was wrong until the girls were 5. One of the girls ended up in hospital ill and had their blood taken. That was when it was worked out that the girl wasn't related to her parents. The police got involved and traced down the other family and told them that the girl they were raising wasn't biologically theirs, and they needed to meet the girl's real parents and decide how to proceed. But those parents panicked, ran away, and had been on the run ever since. He said the girl with the parents who ran away was me. He said my parents weren't my real parents. I stood up. This was some kind of sick joke. He was lying. My mom and dad were my mom and dad. I shouted at the policeman and called him a liar. He tried to get me to sit back down, but I didn't listen. I ran out of school and headed back to my apartment. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. Dad was there, and he was so worried about me. He asked me what was wrong, and after I managed to get my breath back, I told him. I expected him to get angry or laugh, but he didn't say anything. He didn't look surprised, just sad. He walked off, and when he came back, he had an envelope that he took a piece of paper out of. It was a newspaper article from 10 years ago, where a couple were pleading for my parents to come forward so they could meet their biological daughter. I looked at the picture. The couple looked just like me, way more than my real parents. Then my dad said it. He wasn't my biological dad. I was in shock. My dad begged for forgiveness and told me that he and mom just loved me so much that they couldn't bear to let me meet my real parents in case they wanted me back, and I never saw them again. But I was angry. How had they lied to me for all these years? And why had they made my childhood so miserable by moving me around all the time? I told the police I didn't want to be with these people anymore, so they moved me into a foster home which was nearer to where Brad lived. At first, I was pleased to be away from the people who claimed to be my parents. I didn't want to see them again. but living in a foster home was horrible. I only had a couple of drawers for all my belongings, and it was so loud with shouting and arguments at all hours. At least I could see more of Brad, and I had a social worker who looked after me. My social worker told me that my real parents had been contacted and would like to meet me. I jumped at the chance. The next week, I caught a train to a different town and went and met my birth parents in a coffee shop. It was so uncomfortable at first. None of us knew what to say, but after a while it got easier. I looked so much like the dad, and I sounded so similar to the mom. It was so weird. We spoke about our lives, and they told me how they had spent years trying to find me. Then I got to meet Ashley, the baby who I was accidentally swapped with, who is almost 16 like me. It was so weird. She looked a lot like my parents. I suppose she is biologically theirs. Going back to my foster home, I had so much to think about. I couldn't get my head around it all. Me and Ashley messaged each other a lot. She was the only person who really understood how I felt. That was 5 years ago, and now I live with Brad in our own apartment. I'm in touch with my birth parents and the parents who raised me, who I still call mom and dad. I have finally forgiven them for lying to me for all of these years. I understand that they were just frightened of losing me. I bet you didn't guess that was going to be my family's secret, did you?
Hey guys, my name is Carol, and today I will share a story of why I believed I have superpowers. When I was little, my mom died from cancer, so it was just me, my dad, and our dog. I don't remember my mom well, but I remember her beautiful face, even though the last time I saw her was when I was 4. But don't worry, I'm totally fine. My dad is the best. He is my dad, brother, and best friend all at once. He can be such a grandpa at times, too, especially when he says, "Don't listen to music when you walk down the street." Ugh. But I guess grandpas can make sense sometimes. When I was 15, I was walking home from school. I had my earphones in just like I always do. And then a disaster happened. A car hit me. I didn't hear the car while I was crossing the street. A fast car came from the corner and got me in a coma. I don't remember anything, other than seeing my dog watching me through the window all excited. That was my last memory. I woke up 1 year later. Yeah, I missed my sweet 16. When I woke up, my short hair was so much longer, which made me ask, for how long was I sleeping? My dad then replied, "It was 1 year last Tuesday, my sweetie." His eyes were filled with tears. I cried too. Mainly for missing my sweet 16, but also imagining my dad worrying about me for 1 year made me hate myself for not listening to his advice about the earphones. When doctors checked me up, they said I still have several damages and that a part of my memory will be gone forever. In addition, I needed physiotherapy because I didn't walk for a whole year. I felt so scared hearing all of that. When I finally got out of bed, I fell down. I couldn't balance myself. Doctors said it'll take a while until I'll be back to normal. I truly hoped so. A week later, they let me go home, and I saw Max, my dog, again. He started crying and smelling me. He remembered me. I felt so emotional about how I made everyone worry. So I asked my dad to give me time, so I just went to my room to cry myself to sleep. My dad woke me up a few hours later and brought me pizza to my bed. He sat next to me and started asking me questions such as, "Do you remember your mom's name? Do you remember her face? You know my full name, right?" I said, "Of course, Jack." His name is William. I made a joke and punched his shoulder with a little laugh, but then I realized I don't remember if I have friends or not. So I asked my dad, "Dad, do I have friends?" He replied, "Yes, my sweetie, many, many friends, and they are all waiting for you at school. Some even visited you in the hospital a few times." I felt so guilty that I didn't remember their names or faces. When I recovered, I went back to school, and kids everywhere knew me so well, but I didn't know any of them. I couldn't deal with that, so I went home. My dad saw me crying again, so he hugged me and told me everything will be fine and that tomorrow he will explain everything to my friends. My dad went to school with me the next day and told everyone that I have lost my memory and that it would be nice if they introduced themselves to me once again. They all stood in lines and told me how and where we met. All of these conversations made me so emotional. These people seemed like they were truly good friends, but I don't remember any of them. After I finished school, I went shopping with my friends, but I didn't have any money on me, so I asked my friends if they could wait for me to go grab money from home. When I got home, I went to the basement and took out a box with money and took a few bucks out of there. My dad saw me and said angrily, "What are you doing?" I replied, "Taking my money." He said, "How did you know it's yours?" I then thought, how do I know that, really? My dad said, "Put it back," and gave me money from his wallet. But I was wondering, why? He'd just admitted that these are mine. I went out with my friends, and the whole day I couldn't stop thinking about it. In the evening, my dad was acting a bit weird. He didn't talk to me much. I even felt a bit scared. I felt like I had done something bad, and suddenly I heard my dad saying, "Carol, could you bring me my documents, please?" He didn't mention which ones, but I kind of figured it out. When I passed them to my dad, he grabbed my hand and said, "How did you know where they were? I never told you. Tell me everything you know." I couldn't think about anything other than that I can read minds. He thought that my uncle could have possibly told me, but I haven't seen my uncle at all ever since I woke up. I didn't call him either. I went to my room wondering. I decided to search on the internet about mind reading, but there was no proof that it could be possible, and I couldn't tell the world and just embarrass myself. So I started asking my friends to ask me about things they never told me about and see if I could guess any. And guess what? I failed. I couldn't understand. How did I know twice what my dad never told me? My dad was curious too. I started digging more and more, but I couldn't find anything. I woke up in the middle of the night to get something to eat, and on my way to the kitchen, I heard my dad talking on the phone with someone saying, "Carol knows everything. What should I do?" I stood there shocked, wondering, what can I possibly know that he doesn't want me to? What is he hiding from me? I just wanted to ask about it. But if I did, he'd just be happy that I didn't know, and that way he just won't tell me anything. So I had to keep acting like I knew, and kept on digging. But at the same time, I was very worried about what I am going to find out. I wasn't here for just a year, and there were already so many secrets. My dad and I became a bit distant after that. I thought if the truth will hurt me, it will be better to end contacts with my dad slowly rather than suddenly. I started going out with friends more, spent less and less time with my dad, and I became uninterested in his secrets anymore. And then I met this guy, Mark. He was a bit older than me, old enough to own his own apartment, but still not much older. I met him at a bar and he asked me out. We started dating a week after, and I started disappearing from home for days. My dad always called me, but I ignored him. He must have still thought that I knew everything, and probably tried to apologize for his dark secrets. Mark and I really loved each other. He was even ready to move in together. I went back home to tell my dad that next month, that when I turn 18, I will move out. My dad got very disappointed and asked, "What? This soon? You won't even introduce the guy to your father first?" I said rudely that even if I did, it won't help him stopping me. So I just took my stuff and started packing my bags. I prepared myself for moving out. Anyway, I felt sick at night and threw up. And just like any girl with a boyfriend would think, I had to take a pregnancy test. And it was positive. I didn't know how to tell Mark. We had never talked about kids before. I still don't know his opinion about kids. So I just tried to reveal it to him in the cutest way to make him as less angry as I could. When he got home, I put blue and pink bows on the pregnancy test and showed it to Mark, asking him which color he likes more. And suddenly, all I was seeing was things flying around. I couldn't believe it. The lovely boyfriend turned into a monster. He was so violent that my only way out was to run away. He punched and kicked me, but the neighbors stopped him, and I got away. All I could hear was the names he was calling me. Who would have thought? It could take a complete wrong turn. I got back home with a blue eye, scratches and bruises all over my body. My dad opened the door, he saw me, grabbed his chest, and started falling on the ground, needing help myself. I started crying and screaming for help like crazy. 2 ambulances took both of us separately, and when we arrived at the hospital, they started treating us right away. Both were in different emergency rooms. doctor said that the baby is fine and that my wrist was cracked a bit, but everything else was fine. I couldn't wait to see my dad, so I just went to him without asking. The doctor said my dad is very sick and that he has been sick for the past year, and that this time it's really bad. I couldn't believe what I heard. I was so sad that I couldn't stop crying. I called my uncle and waited for him to fly back home because he was our only family. He was going to question me about what had happened, so I told him everything. Mark was arrested, and I stayed the night with my dad. He woke up in the middle of the night and said the difference to me. He thought I knew about his illness, and that's why I left him. What should I do now? I tried to explain to my dad that I didn't know, and that I tried to get the truth by acting like I know. But it seemed like he couldn't hear me anymore. My uncle arrived in the morning, and I felt so angry because he didn't tell me. And that's when my uncle decided to finally tell me everything. He said that when the doctors told my dad that I won't wake up for a long time, and possibly never, he got a heart attack, and since then, his heart became weaker and weaker, and that he saved money for me for the future. He also told me that I must have heard my dad calling my uncle when I was in a coma, which is why I knew things he never directly told me about. He knew he would die soon, so he prepared money for me for my future. And I was so selfish using it for shopping. I hurt and ignored him. He didn't want me to feel guilty that he got sick because of my irresponsibility, so he kept it a secret and planned to take care of his health secretly and live our life happily ever after. But my childish personality got him dying. I will never forgive myself for doing what I did. And I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to tell him how sorry I am, and that he's a grandpa. Right now, he is in a very bad situation that no one knows how it will end.